Let's talk causes. No, this is not some vague, because of human depravity bit of grandiloquent philosophy. We're going to talk specific causes. What is going to cause the collapse of our current world order? And knowing that, how can we respond? Now, we've already seen that in overall terms, the collapse is going to mirror the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, with a primer period of losing the morals that built up our society, then a shock and awe period of mass die-off, culminating in a final period which corresponds to the mop-up campaign, the rape and murder spree after the city defenses collapse. If you're going to survive this, and in Jerusalem 70 AD some people did, then you have to prepare. For them it was 45 days. 45 days is a long time in a city that ran out of food months ago. You had to have a good hiding spot, and you had to have supplies squirreled away in that hiding spot. Okay, here's our key image. It's from Revelation chapter 17. Here we have the woman, Babylon, riding the beast of the apocalypse. The imagery here is actually very simple. Think of it as a rider on a horse, or even a driver in a car. Ahead, that's our rider. This is the thing giving directions and a mode of conveyance. So this is the thing carrying our intellectual driver. We've already seen that Mystery Babylon reflects a society based on relativism, the idea that there is no absolute truth. Babylon was the only known ancient society that went all in on relativistic thinking. But that passage is telling us that the collapse won't be like the city-state of Babylon, which was taken without a fight by the Persians. No, this is our mode of conveyance, which the passage tells us is situated on 7 mountains, or 7 hills. Everyone in the ancient world who read that text would have known the reference. The city on 7 hills was another name for the city of Rome, in the same way that the Big Apple is another name for the city of New York. And if I made reference to New York as the Big Apple, you would know that I was making a distinction, that I was talking about not New York State. I didn't mean Raleigh and Niagara and Syracuse. No, I meant New York City specifically. So here, we're not talking about the Roman Empire, which never collapsed exactly. It moved north and east and changed into Byzantium and into Christendom and into our modern world over time. But the city of Rome almost went extinct. The city of Rome went from the most populous city in the ancient world, with maybe over 1 million people, to a nearly uninhabited ruin, and it stayed that way for quite some time before it was rebuilt. This is our analogy. We're being told that one day society will collapse the same way that the city of Rome collapsed. Okay? What caused the city of Rome to collapse? Guess what? It fits our Days of Daniel model, and even fleshes it out a little bit. 1260, 1290, 1335. 1260, the loss of principles. Rome was founded on the idea of sacrificing oneself for the state, what was called Romanitas, the farmer-soldier-citizen ideal, hard-working, hard-fighting, well-versed in the Greek-style scholarship of the day. It goes through a period we call the Pax Romana, the Peace of Rome. Basically, Rome had very little competition during that time. The people began to take their wealth and position for granted, and they started outsourcing all the hard work and hard studying. The new normal in the Roman family structure was a situation where the children of the patriarchal family head were pampered. They didn't have to do anything or study anything. All that got outsourced to the family slaves. Well, knowledge is power. Once those slaves were the educated ones and were the ones that states became dependent on, and the same thing happened in the military, well, at that point, anyone with an ounce of objectivity should have seen the pending disaster. Just like with Jerusalem in 66 AD, where anybody who knew what was going on should have been able to look at that state of affairs and say, as soon as we get a so-called Messiah who tries to lead a military revolt, this city is going to burn to the ground. Same thing with Rome, except the quote would be, if this city gets attacked, and it has to be defended by slaves and foreigners, people not even fully enfranchised, they're not going to die for this place. This city's going to get sacked. And guess what? That's what happened. 1290, the period of collapse, Rome got sacked. Did it ever? The same rape and murder spree they unleashed on Jerusalem happened to them. What's different is that that's not actually what made Rome uninhabitable, not directly. You see, Rome was the first truly artificial city. We take them for granted all the time now. Phoenix, Arizona is growing like crazy in spite of the fact that it's an artificial city. It can't support itself on its own nearby resources. Water has to be pumped in all the way from the Colorado River. If the infrastructure that transports that water fails in some way, well, Phoenix is uninhabitable. That land can support a few people, but nothing like what it has now. Rome, like Phoenix, grew by pumping in enormous amounts of fresh water from a great distance. Rome was very much like a modern city. When it had over 1 million people, most of those people were living in tenements that looked very much like modern-day apartment buildings. They had to have access to clean water. And the building projects necessary to transport that water could only be built and maintained by an empire like Rome. In the medieval era even, centuries later, no one could do it. When you think of everything that's required, something like a university system to train your engineers, a stable currency to pay workers for a project that's going to take so long to complete that some of them will never even benefit from it in their own lifetimes. And since this is the ancient world, you had to have a massive labor force and a means to control that labor force. Lose all that, and your aqueducts fall into disrepair. And Rome couldn't support anything like the number of people who lived there. And that's ultimately what destroyed Rome. That's not a bridge you're looking at. That's an aqueduct, an above-ground water pipe from ancient Rome. The city of Rome had 14 of them. By the time the city fell into disrepair, all but one of them was out of commission. The fact is that Rome built itself up into a society so complex that it required a society grounded on those basic principles that built it up. And when they abandoned those principles, Rome was doomed. All right, now fast forward a couple thousand years and take a look at what's happening around us. This article does a wonderful job of summing it up, linked below, because I would tell anybody I thought would listen that right now the U.S. is becoming Rikers Island. You want to know why cargo ships are lined up off the West Coast? You want to know why we can't seem to do anything anymore, from running elections to securing our borders to withdrawing from a country like Afghanistan? Take the collapse happening at Rikers and simply extrapolate it out to all 50 states. Now, some of the things in that article make you read between the lines. Why are the guards quitting or sicking out? I know they say it's more dangerous, but why is it more dangerous? And the answer, the real answer, is 1260, the loss of fundamental principles. Once upon a time, the purpose of the American prison was to house convicted criminals away from society for a period determined by the courts. If a prisoner got unruly, the guards made it stop, in force, in a way meant to minimize the threat to them. Fast forward to the modern day, and now prison officials are terrified of media exposure. Have a violent incident involving their guards? Have the press get the video through open records? Have the public get all ginned up after watching something that looks violent to their innocent little eyes, and voila! Now we have to get rid of rapid response teams. No more tasers, no more pepper spray. What? Your guards weren't able to de-escalate? Must be your fault. The remaining response options are dangerous for those jailers. So they quit. Some of them sick out. The ones still coming into work are left with fewer and fewer options. Here in Rikers, some of them got the bright idea to negotiate with the inmates. Hey, Marco, you're in control of a bunch of guys in cell block C. Here, I'll give you a key. You can move freely inside the block. Just help me control these guys. And there you are. The inmates are literally running the asylum. And that same pattern of collapse is everywhere. Where I work, I just finished an investigation involving one of my guys inside a middle school. As part of that, I found a video of a student destroying a principal's office while the administrators all stood outside. Teachers threatened, teachers assaulted, unable to do anything about it because the administration is afraid of the optics if they go hands-on, just like Rikers. You want to know why they're so eager to go back to remote learning? I know why. Now, this is going to impact every aspect of our country going forward. But right now, the system I'm the most worried about is our military. This is just like the aqueducts, except we're not talking about water. We're talking about weapon systems capable of rendering our entire planet uninhabitable. What happens when that becomes Rikers Island? What happens when the inmates are running that asylum? When the Soviet Union collapsed, they had generals running whole regions like petty dictators. They had ex-officials trying to sell equipment, even nuclear submarines, on the open market. It would have been a whole lot worse if the governments around them were falling apart at the same time, which is what we have to look forward to going forward. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. But for a foretaste, we have this. That aircraft carrier took years to build and cost billions of dollars. And it wasn't destroyed by a foreign government. It may have been destroyed by a single disaffected sailor who decided to start a fire below decks. And even if it wasn't, I can't help but remember a time when our aircraft carriers didn't usually burn up while in a safe harbor. Every year prior to last year. And that happened before we started making an ideology that teaches that this country is systemically evil as a part of the basic curriculum for every new recruit. How long until the first nuclear accident? It's anybody's guess. Okay, next video I'll talk strategy and nothing else, but here's the first part of this. How could a Roman have survived the fall of the city of Rome? Easy. Leave. Get out of the path of the barbarians before they arrive. Okay, for us now. If you don't live in or near a major American city, I've got good news. A lot of what's about to happen may not affect you at all. For everybody else, here's a map of the prevailing wind currents in the United States. Radiation, chemical, biological weapons, they go off and they're all going to smear across the landscape just like this. Pro tip, avoid the red. More next time. This is David Reichert from The Bunker. Click like and subscribe and click the notification bell and we'll try and keep the videos coming. Also, see the link below to order book 1 of the Holocaust Engine series, our pandemic post-apocalyptic horror that won the Pinnacle Award for the best science fiction novel of 2020.